Tell me about your reaction to Macron's win. Was it close or not as close as people thought it might be?
A little bit of both would be my answer. Remembering that in the last election, the same two candidates faced off, and Macron crushed Le Pen. This is a much, much closer result than in the past. On the other hand, there were predictions that she just might squeak through if enough people abstained, if enough Mélenchon supporters switched their votes over to Le Pen. There was some possibility she might even pull out a victory. It's a solid win for Macron, but compared to the past, not as strong a showing.
So, Professor, are we to surmise then that populist politicians are on the on the outs, as it were? We saw what happened in Slovenia as well these last few days, where a liberal president was elected, ousting the former, who was also a populist. Are we seeing a downswing in this, and how much does what's happening in Ukraine have to do with that shift?
I'd like to be optimistic. It's not necessarily my nature. It's worth saying that Orban won another term in office. Putin is still very much in control. And in the United States, there is a candidate who might be called populist, whose party will be a serious contender in the next presidential elections. Here, I'm speaking from Princeton,
Yes.
New Jersey. So it's too soon to count populism out. And it's worth watching what will happen in France in the legislative elections upcoming, whether the populist surge at the presidential level also translates into legislative victories. That will be a little bit of a bellwether for France.
Right.
If Le Pen and others like her do well, it's too soon. It's too soon to count her out. She has lost several times, and she's not getting any younger. Just the same, she's a good deal younger than either of the major presidential figures in the United States, and she has a future ahead of her. So this isn't going away.
Interesting. However, Macron has acknowledged he needs to do more to reach out to the people who supported Marine Le Pen. What does he need to do, and how can he win them over?
This is a political question. I actually don't think he needs to do anything, and that he would be better served appealing to the people on the left, some of whom I suspect are taking to the streets at this very moment, and that he pursued that strategy up until just the most recent weeks of wooing the right, and the result of that was that the gap between left and right, between his candidacy and Le Pen's closed. She drew closer. So I think he would be better served by turning to the left and, if not wooing them, at least not angering him the way he has in the past.
Last question. How will his victory impact Europe as a whole then moving forward, particularly in light of what we're seeing in Ukraine?
Yes. If it's a victory for anything substantive, because he's changed his policies on many things, but on one thing Macron has not changed his policy on, and that is Europe. He's a very serious European, and when he appears, the French flag is behind him, but also the flag of Europe. So in that sense, this is a very strong and solid victory for Europe and for a relatively united front against Russia in Ukraine.
Philippe Nord is an expert in French politics and history. Professor, thank you so much for your time today from Princeton, New Jersey.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.